Part of my theory about why it is that they're not connecting trauma to the development of transgender identity is that there's a lot of money in this. Pharmaceutical companies are making a ton of money from medicating kids.
Just think of the money that can be made in medicalizing healthy people. And if we're talking kids, right? So you start them on puberty blockers when they're prepubescent. And then the next stage is to give cross-sex hormones.
If you put a child on puberty blockers and then cross-sex hormones, that child is medicalized for life because their body's never going to develop the capacity to make the hormones that the child needs.
And then that lifelong hormonal treatment leads to other complications that then require medical intervention, right? So you're essentially making a healthy person sick and making them completely dependent on expensive pharmaceutical drugs in order to maintain this identity. There's a lot of money to be made there.
Just sex reassignment surgery over the next 5 years is expected to be $1 billion industry. If being transgender is a biologically fixed thing, which I don't believe it is, but if it is, there is a finite number of people for whom that will be true. These market reports say that it's a growth industry. Well, the only way it's a growth industry is if it's being marketed, and it is being marketed.
Hello everyone, if you are a new viewer, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. If this is your second, third, fourth time watching one of my videos and you are not yet subscribed, we already go together. Make it official and hit that subscribe button. 75% of you who watch my channel are not yet subscribed, and I do have the goal of making it to 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year. So if you enjoy my channel, if you enjoy my content and you would like to support, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. But today we are going to be talking about the Transgender Industrial Complex.
I think we should have that conversation.
But first, let me start off with a story. Once upon a time, there was a drug called Lupron. I just started my story and I'm messing up already. Lupron, that went by the brand name Lupron. Lupron was discovered in 1973 and patented in 1985 to treat advanced prostate cancer. You see, prostate cancer cells grow and spread when they are fueled by male hormones. So what Lupron does is it deprives those cancer cells of male hormones. It doesn't cure prostate cancer, but it treats it. It does of course have side effects, but we will discuss those later. Lupron does not only suppress the production of male hormones, but can also be used to suppress the production of female hormones. Lupron can also be used to treat precocious puberty, endometriosis, uterine fibroids, breast cancer. It can be used to help women have successful IVF treatments, and it can also be used to chemically castrate sex offenders. The end.
No, could you repeat it? Because I can't believe my ears.
The ACLU is the American Civil Liberties Union, and they are currently suing many states across America to overturn the ban on gender-affirming care, meaning that, amongst other things, they are advocating for children to have access to Lupron, even though Lupron does not have FDA approval to be used for gender-affirming care. They are also advocating against sex offenders being castrated with Lupron because they believe it is cruel and unusual punishment. So how much does Lupron cost, you may ask? The average cost of Lupron in America is $2,059 USD per month.
It's expensive. Gotta make money.
But what is the cost to the individual's body?
So Lupron has quite a bit of side effects. One of the most famous ones is bone density loss. So it can really affect your bone health. The bone loss is actually a permanent side effect from Lupron. Another one of the side effects is brain fog and IQ loss when used on young people. Other side effects of Lupron include if the drug is used on a girl who's already experienced a period, it can induce violent menopause in her. So all of the symptoms in menopause all at one time, horribly violent, unbearable, and it's literally described as violent menopause. Dr. Marcy Bowers, also trans, a surgeon. She is famous for being the surgeon who performed Jazz Jennings' bottom surgery. Dr. Marcy Bowers specializes in male to female transition, and she said 100% of her patients that she transitioned from male to female, the ones who had their puberty blocked in their youth, none of them are able to reach full sexual function and experience orgasm. Other side effects that are interesting: libido loss, depression, severe mood changes. My question is, this is starting to sound like a self-perpetuated cycle, right? Because puberty is the mechanism by which a lot of gay kids discover that they're going to be gay or that they are gay. During their puberty, that's when their attraction all comes up. That's how they can be figuring themselves out. A lot of feminine boys that might relate more with girls in their youth figure out through puberty that, oh wait, I'm not a girl, or I'm not supposed to be a girl, I'm just gay.
So the term puberty blocking or puberty blockers really shouldn't be used. It's not accurate. There's no way to block puberty with medications or with anything. We've been told by various organizations, including prominent medical groups, that you can pause puberty, giving the child time to think about what gender they want to be, that they're reversible and they're harmless. It's just not true. The brain does not grow as one unit. There are certain sections that do not complete maturation until even into young adulthood, mid-20s. We do know that some of the last areas to mature are the frontal cortex, involved in executive function, making decisions. There are things that need to happen in sequence, hormones that have to be introduced that help with brain development, bone development, muscle development, coordination. If we stop those, we don't know what that does.
Lupron is not the only option when it comes to puberty blockers. There is Zoladex, which is an implant that goes under the skin, and the average cost is $916 per month. There is Suprelin, which is also an implant that goes under the skin and is good for 1 year, and the average annual cost is $49,914. And there is also a drug called Trelstar, which is an injection that has an average cost of $866 per month. Just like Lupron, all of the medications that I mentioned can be used to treat other conditions such as endometriosis, uterine fibroids, prostate cancer, breast cancer, and they can also be used as chemical castration. And the cost for these drugs may be lower or higher depending on the dosage required, as well as depending on which pharmacy they are purchased from, but these are just ballpark figures to give you an average. According to Reuters, in 2017, 15,172 youths between the ages of 6 and 17 were diagnosed with gender dysphoria. In 2021, this number more than doubled and was approximately 42,167 youths. The same study found that in 2017, 633 youths were on hormone blockers to treat gender dysphoria, and in 2021, that number doubled to 1,390. These numbers are almost certainly an undercount because the data only includes the children whose treatments were covered through insurance companies with a gender dysphoria diagnosis. So it doesn't account for children who have received gender affirmation care without a gender dysphoria diagnosis. It doesn't account for children whose parents are paying cash for their treatment, and it doesn't account for children whose treatment is being covered through Medicaid. You know, the most troubling thing about this trend is that we can clearly see that the number of children claiming to be experiencing gender dysphoria doubled following the pandemic. You know, that same pandemic where we were all locked in our houses with nothing to do but be on the internet. That same time period where a bunch of girls started spontaneously developing Tourette syndrome from learning it on TikTok. That same time period.
These are some of the tics associated with Tourette syndrome, a neurological condition that is 3 times more common in boys than in girls. However, medical experts have been seeing a rise in functional tic disorders in teen girls, and they're linking the increase to the popular social media site TikTok.
I suspect in the upcoming years, the number of kids believing they are trans will continue to double as we continue to see schools, media, and the healthcare industry be infiltrated by gender ideology. And speaking of the healthcare system being infiltrated by the ideology, you know how there is the ESG score? And that's the reason why we continue to see these companies, go woke and go broke, cough, cough, Bud Light. Did you know that there is something similar to the ESG score that applies to hospitals? It is called the Healthcare Equality Index. This is a scorecard that was developed for use in hospitals by the Human Rights Campaign, and the scorecard measures the equity and inclusion of their LGBTQ patients. This scorecard is on a 100-point scale, and they award points for doing things like asking children their pronouns, even though they have no history of gender dysphoria. writing the child's pronouns on the whiteboard outside of their room, even though they have no history of gender dysphoria, doing things like wearing a pin that has the trans flag to let people know which master you serve. Basically, you get woke points for pushing the agenda. And would you like to guess who is funding the Healthcare Equality Index? And here are your options. A. Pfizer and Pharma. B. Pfizer and Pharma. C. Pfizer and Pharma. Or D. All of the above. Yes, you got it right. That one. You are so smart. The one that you picked, that's the right answer. Pfizer and Pharma. Pfizer, the company that we all love and trust so much. The company that always has our best interests in mind, and they're so honest all the time and they never lie. That company, they're funding this. And over 2,200 health systems in America are participating in this woke rating system. Oh, and you know what else you get points for? For prescribing puberty blockers to children who say they are experiencing gender dysphoria. And hospitals are penalized on the scorecard for allowing, quote, discriminatory treatment that is in conflict with their non-discrimination policy. So a doctor or a nurse will be seen as discriminatory if they question a child that says they are experiencing gender dysphoria. So when you have this in mind, it now makes sense as to why it is so easy for people to get a doctor to diagnose them with gender dysphoria. Not only are there no formal guidelines, no formal diagnosis manual to diagnose someone with gender dysphoria, but if a doctor doesn't affirm the patient, then they are seen as discriminatory. And although the scorecard is not legally enforceable, when a hospital has a bad score, it puts a target on their back to be sued for human rights violations. And groups like the ACLU have been suing these hospitals for human rights violations. Just take, for example, last year in 2022, when two hospitals in Texas, the first being UT Southwestern Medical Center and the second being Children's Health in Dallas, lost 25 points because they stopped using puberty blockers to treat gender dysphoria, but continued to use them to treat precocious puberty, the original purpose of puberty blockers.
The pharma companies are the strippers. They just want your money.
According to a market analysis report completed by Grandview Research in 2022, the sex reassignment hormone therapy market was estimated to be worth $1.6 billion and is expected to grow to $2.23 billion by 2030. They also estimated that in 2022, gender reassignment surgery was a $2.1 billion industry, and it is expected to grow to $5 billion by 2030. The growth rate is largely being driven by young women who are undergoing gender reassignment surgery to transition to transgendered men.
We're trying to save children from being sterilized. This is, in a lot of ways, a eugenics issue. These are kids with mental health issues who are being sterilized. That's eugenics. Kids with autism, kids who have been sexually assaulted, kids who have eating disorders, kids who have depression, kids who have anxiety are being sterilized by this ideology. It's not inclusive to tell children that because they're autistic, because they've been traumatized, because they've been depressed, that they should transition. I always feel like this is really stigmatizing people with mental illness because the transgender activists are insisting that this is not a mental illness. And the message is that it's better to accept somebody's false reality than to say that they have a mental health issue. And that's really stigmatizing mental health issues. That's saying that it's so bad to admit that you have a mental health issue that we have to bend reality and force everybody around you to adopt that reality rather than admitting this is a mental health issue.
I'm not vilifying the parents because they're being told that their kid will kill yourself. That is such a harmful thing. I believed it. I believed that I would kill myself if I didn't transition because I already knew what it felt like to be. I was miserable. I felt very weak and vulnerable. I needed someone to tell me that I was strong enough to get through this and that I didn't have to permanently change my body, and that the mainstream message that I'm being told, maybe I should entertain the possibility that that's wrong.
If you liked this video and you found it informative, please don't forget to hit the like button because it does help me out in the algorithm and it helps push my video out to more viewers. If you're not yet subscribed, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It's one way that you can support my channel. I am hoping to make it to 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year, so I appreciate all of you guys that are taking the time out to subscribe. And I also want to thank my patrons on Patreon. There are a handful of you that are supporting me on Patreon. I really appreciate it. If you too would like to support me on Patreon, my link for Patreon will be in the description box down below, as well as the link to my Instagram account. You can follow me at NissCee.Social on Instagram. If you like this video and you would like to see more videos just like this, I have 2 more videos for you in the end cards. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye.